start with this premise from Hayek. If you accept the premise that individuals exist for the greater good of society or the nation, then all the horrible experiences of totalitarianism are logical and will follow. Question: does the Constitution of the United States preserve, protect, and defend individual natural rights, or is it an instrument for totalitarianism? Now, you can answer this, I would argue, either way. We'll take the bad side for a moment. The argument is over eminent domain. When the king was the king in Great Britain, and he wanted property for his own purposes, he took it. He didn't have to pay for it. He didn't have to go to court. He just took it. Sometimes they would give the owner of the property some cash so that the owner would go away and leave the property peacefully. But the king, as the sovereign, had this power just to take the property. Fast forward to 1787, and they're trying to decide what to do with property rights, this new government that we're creating. Should it be able to take property? Madison, no. Jefferson, no. The only legitimate exchange of property for value is one that is truly voluntary. The individual is the highest good. The individual doesn't exist for the country exists to protect the property rights of the individual. Jefferson and Madison's argument. Hamilton's argument is the one that the king made. Well, listen, we've got to build roads and canals. We've got to expand westward. We need a central bank. We need paper money. We're going to be able to have to take property. Why should we have to pay for it? It's the taxpayers' dollars anyway. So this argument went back and forth, and they crafted the Fifth Amendment. You could argue that the Fifth Amendment is a compromise. You could argue that it permits the exaltation of the state over the individual. It recognizes the right of the government to take whatever real property it wants, but it gives the owner of that property a jury trial and lets a jury decide what the value of the property is. And that's called eminent domain. So question, that right in the Fifth Amendment of the government to take property, does that, as Hayek warned us, manifest the belief that individuals exist for the greater good of the nation? I would argue, regrettably, that it does. That if we truly are free, then our property is truly our own, and we can exclude anyone from it, even the government. That's not radical. That was the idea of most of the founders when they were breaking away from the king. And if you read what Jefferson wrote in the Declaration of Independence, those were his ideas as well. So the Fifth Amendment is an imperfect compromise. By establishing eminent domain, it establishes the prior right of the central government to take whatever property it wants. And in an eminent domain case, and I've tried these as a judge, the issue is not what does the government want the property for? The only issue is what is the value of the property? I remember trying a case once where the government took a farmer's field in order to deposit debris on the field from a highway that they were building. This highway was about 65 or 70 miles from New York City. The debris was about 800 or 900 feet high. It was a mountain in the farmer's backyard. And the government wanted to argue to the jury that if the farmer climbed to the top of the mountain, he'd be able to see New York City. So therefore, the debris that they had deposited on his property actually enhanced its value. Unfortunately for them, I was the judge, and I wouldn't even let them make that absurd argument. But that's the length to which the government will go. But the issue of whether or not the government can do this, that is, take the backyard, it was an enormous backyard, it was 35 or 40 acres, and fill it with debris, was never even reached. In an eminent domain case, property first, decision later. Property first, decision later. The government gets the property, and then the courts decide later what it's worth. We know from the Kelo case that this has truly been distorted now. The Fifth Amendment at least has in its protection public use. That's now become public benefit. And Kelo says that a public benefit can be more tax dollars in the tax collector's coffers. How could that possibly be a benefit to give them more money to spend?